Paresh, thank you so much for joining us in this next edition of Fire Up, the startup interview series that we're doing, trying to get some best practices and interesting experiences from each founder's journeys to share with the other fellow founders. And Vaave has done very well in the last few years in a place that had a lot of players and seemed like was very crowded when you started, but you managed to create a fantastic niche and name for yourself. And more importantly, you've discovered other adjacent markets completely outside of education.
Yeah.
Now that's the topic of interest for us: how to discover lateral markets where the product doesn't change or almost doesn't change, and as is, but you can get to markets that you never even thought existed. Right. So that is going to be the broad theme. But before we get started, Paresh, so I want to just quickly, next 2-3 minutes, describe the whole journey. I mean, how did the idea of Vaave come up, and what all has the journey been like in the last 3 years?
Right. So fundamentally the idea started from wanting to. The fundamental question was India major challenges in the education sector where that you have the employability of the students. Most of the graduates that we see graduate out of the college, but do not know the basics of even the subject that's already there. Like there's an anecdote that always I say is that people don't know that even CSC graduates do not know that Python is a programming language by say. So that was a challenge. And what I realized is in my post-graduation at NITI, most of actually I didn't attend most of my classes, but most of the learning actually happened from our seniors coming back to campus. We used to have at least 1 or 2 sessions from seniors every other week. And that's how the entire concept started. And I started another parallel that was there. Like I started a website for my school, and immediately there was a huge traction on that. These were days where Orkut was popular, not the Facebook, and it's like 2006-7. And I realized that that's a very important thing. And most of my alumni from school were in US back then. We actually have a lot of people who were there. So what the idea started saying, hey, if each of them start contributing probably about 10,000 an annum, even if we get 100 people, that's a huge money for a school that's from a rural background. That's going to be causing a huge impact. And that's how the entire concept started. I didn't know anything about how to do a business, anything. So we started as bootstrap company, started doing websites and applications for clients, and started getting few customers. Like we started, this idea was there, and we actually got our first customer even without the prototype was ready. So we just showed them the mock-ups and signed up, got our first check, and started building it. And it was in the 2011 or 12, I think. And then in 2014, when we had about 12 customers, we said, hey, that's something that we need to, this is something that's a very big thing, and we really want to focus on this. It was a very new market. Alumni relations as such is not new in the world, like because it's been doing, universities have been doing for ages now. Just that there was no proper way to connect back all the alumni. And they've been using other tools like Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups, or anything. No right medium for institutions to manage their database. And at least in India, it was very nascent. No one actually thought about that. So in 2014, we actually came back we shut down our office from about 25-seater people team in Banjara Hills. We came back to CIE with 5 people team. And that's how we started the journey back. And the most of this traction that we had built is over the last 4-5 years, started from CIE again.
So that's, I mean, I'm so happy. Anytime we help from CIE, I'm always happy to hear that. I mean, that's the whole reason of our existence, and I'm so happy to hear that. And of course, you've since significantly outgrown that stage of your journey, and which is a very good thing. Now, so and how did your market acquisition work? I mean, it was a crowded space.
Right.
So how did it was one thing to build a nice product with good features and good UI and everything, and something entirely different to get it actually used. So how was that? I mean, we can just touch upon how did you manage to crack the market and start getting interest?
Right. So the first few customers that we got was from hook and crook. Like we actually reached out to network. We found out various ways to get the first few customers. But one thing fundamentally happened differently was after we got our first investor, who was an accelerator called Uttishta. There was a general partner called Mochin Khan there. what he fundamentally taught us was, hey, if you have to really build and get market acquisition, you have to repeat the sales process, and that's where our strength had become. So what we did was he helped us identify a few of the best customers out of the 12 customers that we already had, and asked us to kind of like say categorize them and say what are these characteristics of these few customers. Like they will, we actually sat down and listed down who are our most probable best customers, like what kind of more customers you need, similar customers you need. And we did that. Once we did that, we got some parameters on which we could actually say, hey, if if the prospective customer has these parameters, then he's more likely to close with us, and will be most happy with someone like that. And he's the one who is ready to pay as well. So that's how we got the initial set, and rest of the game was pretty simple. All we had to do is find out more customers like that. And then we kept doing this for every periodic basis, like probably every 6 months, and say, hey, this is now done. What is the next set of parameters that we want to choose? And we fundamentally built up a very good sales process that helped us like actually streamline the entire customer acquisition. And identifying the right customer fit was probably the key of that, getting more customers.
So, with that, where along the journey did you discover the whole corporate? How did that happen?
So the corporate alumni was also something existing. The thought process was always there, but we never catered the product for corporates as such, and we never positioned. Also because we are not sure of whether who will pay, and we don't know the ideal customer. So the way it happened was Qualcomm actually approached us. Qualcomm placed an inquiry to us and said, "Hey, we need to build something in alumni," and they placed us an inquiry. And moment we said, why not? Well, let's try out. And they've sent us the RFP, and we had almost everything that they required. Almost all features they require, but though the product features are same, fundamentally the pain point is very different for a corporate segment versus a college segment. The features and engagement, on a high level, the features are same, I would say. But the corporates majorly look out for rehire and referral, and the same feature may be used differently by a corporate versus college. So actually, we actually worked with the company, and they literally helped us build the product entirely for corporate segment. So even the pricing we kind of put a very low pricing for them, though it was higher than the college segment. It was very different for them, and we worked together almost for a year to build the entire product for them, satisfying all the requirements there. And I literally went to their office probably I would say every fortnight kind of thing. I sat with them, understood that, and built the product. And once we built it, it was and we saw the results coming out of it. The rest of the game is again like finding out more customers similar to them. So that's how corporate started, and then we signed up almost 6 new corporates post that. We have companies like Hero MotoCorp, KPIT Technologies, Bosch, Virtusa, and as well as like RPG Group entirely signed up with us. We have a huge pipeline of corporates today, and we are probably the only ones in India who is doing corporate alumni platforms.
So what are there other possibilities you discuss? I mean, the corporate alumni is very close to an institute alumni. We don't look at it that way. So it's interesting that some company was looking at it that way. And then now that is there, I'm sure you're talking to other companies.
The reason it happened was because we actually always positioned ourselves as an alumni management company rather than alumni software company. So it was a difference, and we always positioned and we always communicated the message that, hey, we help you with alumni relations. It's not just because of the software. Software is just one part of it.
So what are the other possibilities? I mean, are there other possibilities you discovered as well, other than ex-employees?
Yes. So there are very many new possibilities that are actually popping up, and we've been working on them post what we are doing. And even COVID has just actually gave us a real new thing on what we started working on, helping the students with their employability. That was something that we wanted to do always. So we started with this webinar series across, and we are getting huge traction there. Fundamentally, there are other areas like one is recruitments. Basically, alumni are the best ones for lateral recruitments, and we have an entirely space where we actually reach out to an alumni of a particular institute for rehire, not rehire, referrals basically from their alumni. So that's an entire segment that's there. Recruitments is one market that we are entering into, and there's a market of entirely on how do you actually upskill and help the students with further development. So upskilling is a new market entirely again, because we just have the space and we have the user base already, we have customers already there. We are getting into those segments that actually get us will up basically give us an uh, it will just add on to the revenue. So
so what next? I mean, what are you looking at? Are there other things that you see in the horizon? I mean, other either extending your product?
yes, absolutely. So extension of the product is the career center that we have been working on. Career center is where a specific segment where we actually help the students with their alumni, specifically connecting their alumni back on student development. Not only alumni, we are also partnering with a lot of other companies and institutions who actually would want to cater to the students and their go for their student development again. So student development, I mean simple things like, hey, someone wants to get on to further studies abroad, or someone wants to he's looking for a job and he needs some help from alumni or some experts, and as well someone who wants to start up a company and is seeking help from entrepreneur alumni, or someone again is an expert like that. So there could be an ecosystem around entirely built. So these are few things that we're working on to help again the users that we're working with many things. So one thing that you asked me, how did you discover this lateral markets, right? How do you actually find out what is the customer wanting there? And what I realized is that maybe there's someone fundamentally. I've been a product guy and I've been in more of a support role rather than a sales role. I've been doing sales, that's a different thing. But I see myself as a more of a product guy and looking forward for customer support always. And what I do is I make sure that I interact with customers almost like every week with some other customer. I sit and understand what's happening. And this is where we discovered these things, like a few things like the way entire idea of career center started, because they were actually using our product in a way to help the students with. And when I started probing more about them, what are they doing, how are they doing, that's where I realized, hey, this is something very different, and it's a real good add-on to the what we are doing. And that's how we started the concept of career center. Or even the recruitment model. Recruitment models is also, we again work with the customer directly who wanted to get an external recruiter to post jobs into the networks. So these are few very interesting things that actually come out because I spend a lot of time with the customers directly.
So at some level, I mean, I think that's why the whole idea, the beauty of lateral thinking.
Right.
At some level, you are about networks,
yeah.
Right? I mean, and one very obvious network is an alumni network. You want to engage. I mean, there's an institution and the alma mater, and all the students that graduated from that institution, and you want to stay connected. And extension of that was the whole corporate ex-employee thing. Now extending that to colleges, current students, career guidance, like that. It's at the end of the day, it's a network with some purpose.
Yes.
That you want to connect. So it's a network connecting to something. It could be a company, it could be a college, could be like alma mater, right? So that's very interesting. So now just to conclude, Paresh, if you have to give kind of, how does one go about looking at the lateral markets? Any guidance from your experience? What should the effort be? I mean, of course, you did say that you are out there in the field, you meet customers, kind of you discover because you are there all the time,
right.
Which is very important. No substitute for that. I mean, first person field insights is the best one. But beyond that, are there specific things that you would suggest that somebody should do to spot lateral markets?
Yes, so there are two things that I think specifically as a founder I did differently was definitely being the customer support or looking at customer support is what we already mentioned, and speaking to that, listening to the customer, because there could be a very good customer success team, but they would not have a holistic thinking. They would not get an idea of what is the entire business where it can go. So they would definitely make sure that the customer support is provided. This founder doing that job and listening to the customers, speaking to the customers always is going to be a crucial part of any startup. The second important idea that I always, I probably did was, I kept bouncing off this idea of what we are doing to almost everyone. So anytime a new idea comes in, anytime I see, hey, there's a map or attachment that's coming in, there could be a shot coming out of the bush that we're working with, I actually go and pitch on to the ideas to the relevant people. and see, hey, this is what we are thinking. So there was a very interesting thing that we are doing with corporates again is now something called, we are not doing an alumni portal only for corporate. We are doing an exit process management. Exit process management is where again you providing a very good exit experience is very important for a company to actually make them come back to an alumni. So we are going forward to a step further and say, hey, your employee exit interview also should be from the platform and should actually give a very good experience when you leave it. So we are actually saying, hey, it's an exit process management and not just a alumni or a engagement for corporate. So all of this happened because the idea was one, I pitch onto the same idea, the new ideas that I come. So even with every customer, I actually, like corporate customers, I've been sitting with them for an hour-long discussion every month. I don't know, again, that's a very crucial part we already touched upon, but that's a very crucial part for that. Second, there are other experts in the market who are already in the space. Like say, there could be a HR leader, there could be a educationist who was there, there's principal or someone who's sitting. I just keep and push them on, say, hey, this is the idea that we're working on. What are your thoughts on that? So that is always listening, keeping an eye open in the market and asking them for more questions is something that I've been doing. And I think that's the best way to actually find out what is the next opportunity.
Makes a lot of sense. I think no substitute.
And there's always a caveat to what I add. I always ask another question after my follow-up discussions and saying, hey, can you pay for this?
True.
And how much will you pay for that? That's a very important question that I ask always.
No, absolutely. I think that's very important. So if they're not paying for it, it's easy to say like I need it, but then like you're not going to pay, then it doesn't really matter. So that's been fantastic, Paresh. So before we wrap up, from your experiences with Vaave and also before that, one growth hack tip that you would share with other founders.
Growth hack is definitely one thing that we did. We are probably doing right now is asking for references from the customers. Most often what happens is that we have a customer which itself is a big network by himself. He is actually sold. You already sold it to him, and they can actually refer to a lot more people. And we don't actually, most of us as the founders, we don't utilize that a lot. So I think so. Maybe that's a fundamental thing that everyone should also touch upon and has a special attention to that. Seeking referrals from the existing customers. They are the best ones to promote you, and the moment you do, you build actually. The moment you ask for a reference, you actually build a very good relationship with them, rather than because any problems that they have, they will actually shoot out before they give a reference to you.
True. So Paresh, thank you so much for joining us today in this Fire Up series. We've already done over 20 founders that we've already interviewed in the last 6 weeks.
Sure.
Thanks for joining us. And this will go up probably later today. And all the best with the journey. And hopefully the lockdown gets lifted this week. And when you just can kind of revive the whole market activity. All the best and stay safe.
Thanks, Ramesh.